All right, good morning, everyone. It is the 15th of November, and this is the high school assessment coordinator meeting. Going to start by taking a look at the slide deck. I did share this, but it's also going to be on the website if you need that, and we will get rolling here. All right, so we're going to focus today. We're going to talk about essentially three different things, mostly two of them. Big one is access. We'll talk about ACT and pre-ACT secure updates. We'll get that rolling, but the majority of the time will be access. We will touch base on a couple of things with Dane County Youth Assessment, which is once every 3 years. We'll wind up touching base on AP and on mid-year screening with Achieve. So let's get moving. Once again, our department, for those of you who haven't been on these meetings, our department has expanded this year. So there's 3 of us now who can support you. Myself, Sarah, and Jamie Anderson, who is new to our team. In student services, Stacy Will. Ben Kolash in multilingual programs has been with this for quite some time, so he is quite the expert on this. And also supporting high schools within our new department is Lee Vierstra in the innovation team. So we're going to just touch base on some of the resources that you can get to. A reminder that our assessment website, it can be quickly reached by mmsd.org/assessment. Building out more things every day with respect to each of the assessments, how-to documents, etc. Here's also where you'll find the assessment coordinator resources page, which I'll send out a link to everyone when we're done. And that's where this video recorded will be, along with the agenda, the slide deck, and any other resources. Also, just a reminder, every Monday from 2 to 3 p.m., our department, which is Research, Assessment, and Improvement department, has office hours. So there is always somebody there, and we are always, if we're not in that particular meeting, if there's a question, whoever's there knows how to connect with us immediately. It is a Google Meet link. It is a standing link. You'll also find this in the agenda for today. All right, so let's move on. Got a lot of things to cover today. First of all, let's go back and review some things with access. First of all, those people who are giving access for the very first time on your teams do need to go through the professional development so that they can give this without any issues. Again, they need to be certified. Everyone needs to be certified with this. If you don't have a WIDA account, please email us at the address that you see here, widascreener@, and we'll get you set up on the WIDA website. The WIDA website, of course, is wida.wisc.edu. We also have attached in the agenda, as well as on the slide deck, a document which covers which modules you will need to take in order to take the certification quiz. For those of you who have been involved with Access for some time, you don't have to go through all the modules if you know the stuff. So take the certification quiz, and you may go back and review things. The general premise of Access has not changed this year. What has changed is the platform, and we'll go through some of the changes there. All right, so a timeline, kind of where we're at and where we're going in the next month prior to the window opening and during the window. First of all, thank you for everyone for reviewing all the information that was sent to you regarding accommodations and supports for students. Those are in the system or on their way to being in the system. And Sarah is working hard to get tickets to you prior to Thanksgiving break, but certainly by the week, early in the week after that. It's a pretty heavy lift, so make sure that you'll be watching for those during that time. Physical materials to schools will all the booklets and if you have any accommodated assessments that where somebody needs something large print, etc. All of that material arrives to the district on or about the 30th of November. So that's coming up. We get that out as quickly as possible, but if it comes in the morning, we might get it on the truck to you that day. Otherwise, it'll be the following day that it gets out the door to you. So it will, fortunately for high schools, you're not going to be waiting for any like writing booklets, etc. But that will come either on the 1st or the 4th of December, which the 4th of December is the opening of the test window. Keep in mind that DPI has already pulled all the student information from IC. So if there are changes, if there are additions, if a student has left, that you'll need to kind of monitor to make sure that that is reflected in the tickets that you get, as well as any of the other information that you need. If there are questions, please don't hesitate to email us. Again, using the WIDA screener, that goes to a team that's working on this information in support of you. If you send it just to myself or just to Sarah, and we happen to be stepping away from email, you won't get quite as quick a response as if you send it to WIDA screener. So keeping in mind the professional development that goes with this, again, this is if you've never logged into the Access PD on the WIDA screener site, there is a process. It is under the WIDA secure portal. So if you're looking for any professional development, that's there. Once you have access, that is where you would go. Again, using the document that has been shared to make sure that you do the correct modules. If you are doing, for instance, the alt access, the alternate access, you need to complete the standard access for L's professional development, and then in addition to that, you need to do the alternate access. As I've said every time, please keep in mind that when we do computer-based assessments, it's really critical that that tool, that Chromebook, is up to date. This is going to be the first time in the year that many of these students will be taking an online test. The operating system is going to be critical. One of the things that happens, especially over summer when Chromebooks are not used, is that they are not updated. Just opening them turns it on, but it doesn't necessarily update the Chromebook. The current version of Chrome OS, the most recent version, is 1.18. Access works best on versions 1.14 and higher. So if your students, this is something in preparation, so that day one of the assessment comes along and suddenly it's not allowing students in, this may be one of the reasons. So it literally means restarting the machine, which is hitting the power button in the upper right-hand corner and restarting the actual machine, not just closing the lid and then opening it up to turn it back on. We're working with tech services to make sure that that update happens smoothly and regularly, but it would help just to make sure that you have your students do that. To learn what version of the operating system you have in a Chromebook, when you open it up and initially get it ready, in the upper right-hand, across the right-hand top of the screen, it'll say Chrome OS version and some number after that. So again, we're looking for 1.14 or higher. All right, continuing on with the timeline. So you're going to get this information. Always the question comes up, and it always occurs, what do we do with students who are brand new? They enroll, let's say, the middle of February or right after winter break. The process is always the same. Student enrolls, they do the home language screener first. Then, if it indicates that they need to have the WIDA screener, you give the WIDA screener. If that indicates that they are indeed an English learner, then we go back and say, where are we at? If they arrive prior to January 19th, then the expectation is you will have the opportunity to give them access, the access test. If they arrive after the 19th of January, that is way too tight of a window. I get it. And even on the 19th, it's very tight. I understand. Uh, that's too tight of a window for you to complete by the 26th when the access window closes. So we're going to pass on giving those students the access. If you can, if you feel like you have the options and are available to do that, it would be nice, but we don't have to have that in place. So the 19th of January, which is a Friday, is kind of an informal cutoff date for adding any new students. Remember, the process is the same through enrollment and WIDA screener. So the window opens on the 4th of December. As I said, it's a Monday. I would urge everyone to kind of work to front load this assessment window because it's so broken up, especially after the winter break. It may seem like we have all kinds of time, but that is really, there's a lot of things going on, as there is in December. If you need a writing book, for instance, there is some reason why that's needed. Keep in mind that the turnaround time is 3 days. So unlikely that you'll need any or very many, but just keep that in mind. So winter break begins on the 19th of December. So again, if you start looking at that, that's 2 weeks after the 4th. So we have 2 weeks in which we can get a bunch of students at least moving and started on the access assessment. Our winter break ends and students return on January 3rd, but then the rest of January also goes by very quickly. Martin Luther King Jr. Day is on January 15th, and at the end of semester and the test window closes on January 26th. So keep in mind that while you do have a few weeks on paper, on the calendar, it looks like you have almost 3 weeks upon return from winter break. There's a lot of other things going on, and there isn't just an unbroken stretch of time. So just as you plan and schedule out these particular assessments, please keep that in mind. Students always need to take, and we'll get to a slide with this, you need to take the listening and the reading portion first. Doesn't matter what level they're at, but when we get to speaking and writing, they do break this into tiers. So a tier A and a tier BC, and those two students groups need to be separated, especially for the writing. Speaking, it's possible that you can certainly mix those up, but for writing, there are different lengths of time for each of those domains, that assessment for each of the tier levels. So keep in mind also that headsets, especially for the speaking portion, are mandatory. The listening is also something that you'll want headsets or headphones for. Students can use their own earbuds for the listening. However, for the speaking, we want to make sure that the quality is there. So you will need to have headsets for that. As far as group size, how many that you can actually have in a test, recommended that there's going to be no more than 20 in a group for listening and reading, simply because unless you have more than one person in support of that, that's a pretty large number of students to ensure that you're getting everybody logged in, you have any address questions in a timely manner. We want this to go smoothly. If you have more than 20 students who are testing on the listening and or reading portion, make sure you have more than one staff person there to support. Now that gets much smaller when we get to the speaking assessment. Because of bandwidth, because of noise in the background, we want to give every student a chance to make this work seamlessly. The recommendation is no more than 6 or 8 in a group for speaking. And again, that can be mixed with grade level and tiers for the speaking. And finally, writing, just simply because of the support that's needed, suggested no more than 15 in a group, and that is separated by tiers. The question always comes, can we expect any support from downtown on assessments? And the answer is that's being worked on continuously. I just got an email yesterday saying that this information will be coming to you shortly. I've worked with several of you, and I know that there is this need. So please know that we are working on it. A suggestion or a question for you is, if you know someone who is interested and would be willing to serve as a proctor, let us know. We need to get going with HR. That may or may not be possible in this short time frame, but we do want this to be something that is potentially um, uh, a benefit for you. So if you know somebody, please contact Leah Zapata Vaughn, Ben Kolash, uh, or either of us, and we'll forward any of us on our team. We will forward that on to the right person. All right. So tickets arrive, and a ticket looks something like this. This one is a fake ticket, of course, because it has both reading grade 4 or 5 and that you're in the generic grade 9 session. What I want to point out on this is that the accommodations that are set up for each student, if they have them, are listed here, and you should double check that prior to starting the test in that particular domain. The reason is because once a student starts, it's not easy to change that out. If they complete a domain, if they complete, for instance, listening, and we suddenly, oh, wait a minute, they're not going to get this particular accommodation, we can do that, but we can't go backwards. So double checking prior to actually giving the assessment is important. You'll see here that it also has a username and password. This is not something that can be done through ClassLink. So students will need to log out of their Chromebooks, then log back in. And on that login page, the lower right-hand corner lower left-hand corner is an app menu. On the app menu, you'll see several apps. Yes, Miguel, great question. I'm sorry, I'll back up. There, you'll notice those codes on this particular ticket are not self-explanatory. We will get you a list that shows what each of these codes mean. You can make copies of it, share it with your team, or just use it yourself, however you want to do that. But thank you, I appreciate that. Yes, the test administrator manual will have that as well. So we'll separate that out, so you just have that sheet, but also the test administrator manual has that information available. Great question, thank you. All right, again, this is not on ClassLink. When you get to that Chromebook and log out, the login page, there will be an app menu on the left. You select DRC Insight Online Assessments, and that should take you to a login page. If it does not, if it gives you questions or options, such as what you see at the bottom, make sure you click on the WIDA, not the Wisconsin. If the Wisconsin will get you the forwarded test, which nobody wants to take yet, WIDA will get you to Access. That's where students will put in their username and password. Okay, the actual process for Access is as follows. Again, either order, doesn't matter if you do listening or reading first, but those two must be completed before you move on to anything as far as completing the test. Step 2, the tier placement report. This says, based on the information that the student, when they, their scores when they completed the reading and listening portion, where are they at? Which tier are they at for the speaking and writing portion? So you get a report, and then you can continue on with separating out the tier A for and tier B for writing. Speaking, again, it can be in either tier. All right, what does it look like? So when you log into AMS, because this is going to be now the portal that you use, the assessment management system, that's what AMS stands for. When you log in, you will have several options of things to do. And I want to take you through what the process is for 3 different pieces that you will typically use in order to complete this assessment at your building. The landing page has been changed. Again, a little bit some tweaks from last year. It looks like this right now. I do want to point out that right at the top left, It will say WIDA, so you know that that is uh, which platform you're on, and then My Applications. So the shortcuts here, there are 9 buttons that will take you to different portions. The Manage Test Sessions is also called Registration. So please understand that they're changing some of the language around testing. So instead of a session, it's called registrations. Also at the bottom of that first home page, that landing page, you'll find support, so help resources that will be available for you. One of the things that is always kind of important that you are following along, and if you don't know how to do this, again, I'll have a short video of how to find a completion report. How are people doing? You may say, well, all these students are done, but it will say in progress. It may mean they just didn't hit submit on that button on their particular assessment. So the process is when you're in, and again, I'll do have how to with screenshots, and I'll do a video on this. So if this is too much today, especially at this time in the morning, don't ever hesitate to just ask the question, and we'll make sure you know how to do this. But you go to Student Export, Transfers, and Validation, which is different than it has been in the past. So clicking on that particular one allows you to go get several options: managing students, etc. The Student Status Dashboard. When you are on the Student Status Dashboard, that's when you actually select the site. You'll go through the state, and then you go into your school, and you can select that. It's always going to be the version that is at the top of this list. So there might be several different buttons to select. Always select the one that's on the top. Marie, you had a question. I'm sorry, I missed that.
And Tim, I can address this one.
Okay.
I was just about to respond. So
Okay.
there are 2 different options for repeating test items. One is repeat item audio. It appears on the ticket as RA. Lots of students have this. And what that is an accommodation that's built into the online platform that allows them to repeat the audio one time. It gives them basically a button they can press for that. There's also a repeat items by human reader, which also appears on some IEPs, which means that there would need to be, that would have to be a one-to-one administration if they're going to use that. And I believe it shows up on the ticket as RP. And so that is, so it is something that has to be set up on the back end in advance and should show up on the tickets when you receive them. So those are the 2 different options for repeating items. Otherwise, it is not possible for a student who is taking those domains if they don't have that set up ahead of time or have it in an IEP.
Thanks, Sarah. And I do want to point out that she said repeat one time. So it's not like an infinite times I can keep listening to it over and over. So students really need to be focused. They can listen to it. And if they need to have it repeated one more time, they can click that button. So, but then that's it. So they will need to respond to that. Thanks for the question. Thanks for the help, Sarah. Let me go back to this completing the completion report. So you found your school, and what will show up is something like this. And those of you who've done this before may remember the donut graph. This one is all red because, of course, we haven't started. So you'll see that it shows that there's nothing been started. If a student has completed a particular domain, it will turn that portion and their portion of the graph green. If a student has been excused or is not tested, it is a gray, and a red is that they haven't started yet. So again, towards the end of the time, we'll see these in mostly green. But the key part, or one of the key parts of this, is if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see that under the student search results, you'll see export to CSV. So this is an easy way, especially at high schools with the number of students that you have and each of them taking 4 domains. It's an easy way of sorting and seeing who has completed things and who is yet to start. It produces an Excel CSV file. and you can go ahead and sort based on status. So whether or not they've started, completed, or it's in progress. And so you can see where students are at. Again, it will not give scores, but it will give you information about where they are in the process, who is completed, who is not. So this is a really handy report for you. Remember, I said that in between the listening and the reading portion, there is this tier placement report. Again, it's located in a different spot. Think student sessions and registrations. So if you go to manage test sessions and registrations, click on that button when you log in. There is a tour. So the first time you do this, you may want to just take about 30 seconds and go through this tour, and it shows you different parts of this newly structured portion. However, after your second or third time, you will not want to do the tour. Click the box in the upper right, and you will move into the assessment to the rest of the test management window. You do have to select your school. It is likely going to be the only choice that you have, but you do have to select that. And it's in the upper right. And then you need to select which assessment you're looking at. So you'll need to select the Wisconsin Access for ELS for 23-24. Once you've done that, this one happens to be for Badger Rock. Once you've done that, it will show all the different, what we used to call sessions. It'll say registration name. So it will have the generic grade 8 or grade 9 or grade 10. And then it will have which reading assessment, the assessments, the domains. You're looking for, remember, the tier placement. What you need to do is say, well, who is it that was actually assessing? Who's completed the listening and reading? Check the boxes under registration name, and then in the upper right, export details. By clicking on export details, it will give you a CSV file, and it will show you who has completed what and which tier that these students are on. Again, I've removed information here about specific students, but you'll see that there is a writing tier and a speaking tier in that red circle. That is going to be the indicator that will show you which students are in which tier for the speaking and the writing portion. So we've got two reports, the completion report and the tier placement report. Finally, new students arrive will need to get tickets. By going through a similar process, you'll be able to print student tickets. Again, you go to test management, you select your school, you select the registration window, what test it is we're doing, and you will need to click on the registration name. Again, which grade level that the student is in and which domain. Once you've done that, this one happens to be generic grade 8. It will list all the students that are in that registration or test session. So you can just go ahead and print all tickets. You'll notice that next to details, it also shows a student list. This is the list that will allow you to click on a single student and print their single ticket. So you don't necessarily need to have all students and their tickets, but you will want to have that new student. So this is how you do this. Again, I'm going to have a how-to document and a short video walking through these steps to ensure that all of these are something that you can do and feel confident in this newly renovated platform. Question always comes up about Madison Promise students. I know that there are very few that are in high school. However, keep in mind that regardless of whether they're in Promise or they're at Horizon High School or some other program that is not Metro or IAE, those two programs run on their own, and they will be taken care of. So if it's a different program, please make sure that all English learners are expected to take the access test. Alternate or alt access and access can only be done in person. And so if a student is in a virtual setting, they will need to have some arrangements made where it can be given to them in person. Notice I did not say that it has to be in your building. It can be at a quote unquote neutral site. It can be at a different school. It cannot be given online. If you have a student at Madison Promise, please connect with Andrew Stendal. And the question arises, how do I know which students I have, or if I have any students at Madison Promise? Sarah created a column on the spreadsheet that listed all your students expected to test, the one that you got for the accommodations. Sarah, I apologize. What was the name of that column?
It was called, that's a great
Notes?
question. It's something, yeah, like programming notes. That's what it's called.
Programming notes. Okay, thank you. And so programming notes, it will say whether or not the student is in Madison Promise, et cetera. So, and with that, that's the big items with Access. You're going to be getting the testing administration manual. It'll be available electronically. It'll also be coming the printed version. There are scripts available. All this will be on the Access web page to support you in the next day. So that's coming up. Again, if you have questions for us after today, make sure that you send them through WIDA Screener or you can call or email us directly. Okay. So I'll come back to questions if you have questions about Access in just a few minutes. But I do want to talk about ACT and pre-ACT secure. So things are moving forward. Things are moving ahead with this. And so a couple things. First of all, pre-ACT secure. The date has been okayed by senior leaders as April 16th as the 9th and 10th grade day only. I'm working to get that on the district calendar as well as the 12th of March for the ACT date. If that's not already there, I'll make sure both of those are listed. So I just want you to know that April 16th has been okayed. We'll spend more time talking about pre-ACT secure in the not too distant future, but for right now, we're going to move on to ACT because things are starting to happen with that. So I completely understand and I appreciate the concerns that have been shared with me about online versus pencil paper testing. Lead principals, I've been working now with Jay Affelt, and lead principals are going to make that decision later today. They are meeting. This is a topic for their meeting this afternoon. Jay shared with me some of the concerns, and I absolutely respect what is going on in your buildings. I understand that now. I'm a little bit clearer on that. Please know that I will absolutely support any decision that is made by the principals as we go forward in this meeting. Marianne, I'm not sure if it's going to look different for Capital. Elizabeth could potentially look forward, could be different for Shabazz. But I want to make sure that you understand that this decision will be made today. And I will be either hearing from Jay today or from him tomorrow. But you should know what is going on in the next 24 hours. ACT, there are several different moving parts to ACT, which kind of concerns me as always, but I've tried to collect them all here. So as far as giving people access to different pieces, especially to Pearson Access Next, which is the platform that we'll need to use, that goes through success.act.org. That's also where you will find data and can pull data from your school from previous administrations. Pearson Access Next is going to be the platform that we use to set up testing, to make sure that things are going in the right direction to each of the buildings, et cetera. We'll go into more detail about that in a moment. DPI has some trainings for ACT. I know that some of you have been involved in a couple of them. That is ongoing. The accommodations one was last month. There was a recent administration one. When you go to that site, we'll talk more about this. Even if you want to see all these trainings have been recorded, but if you want to see one, you still have to register for it, even if it's happened in the past. So don't be put off by it's like, well, yeah, what am I registering for? Something that happened in October? Yes, you register for that, and then the video is available to you. And finally, the ACT Wisconsin website is where they put all the documentation, and they have it broken down by steps. So step 1, step 2, etc., and the documentation and the questions that go along with each one of those particular steps. So let's move ahead on things to do. Once we've made the decision for ACT as whether it is pencil or paper, the next step is going to be happening before December 8th. We need to log into Pearson Access Next. And again, if you can't do that, you may want to try last year's. If you were involved last year, you can't do it this year, try last year's password. If you can't, let me know and we'll get you set up on that. But we need to do 3 things for each school. Number 1, manage contact information. Who is the contact person at each of the schools? We need to verify shipping addresses. We know that everything comes through FLUM, but if there's something that you need like overnighted, we need to have a shipping address for the school as well as a physical address for the school. And finally, we'll be selecting which testing window and when you want your material to arrive if we're doing the pencil paper. Also, if we're doing the online, there's other instructional material that comes to you. So all of this can be done after the decision is made, and then we can start doing that. I will be double checking, and if you need help to go through this, let me know, and I'll make sure that each of the schools is completed. So that's one of the to-dos. A second one is the testing accommodations portal has been open. It is open right now. Need to enter accommodations for students with IEPs and 504s, and we need to enter English language learner supports. And the documentation, how to do this, the resources are at the Wisconsin ACT or ACT Wisconsin website. The due date is January 19th. That's the initial due date. There's a reconsideration. There's all kinds of things that happen after that date, but nothing will happen if a student doesn't get any accommodations at least begun or applied for by that 19th. If the student arrives after that, there is also a process for ensuring that student arrives the middle of February. It's plenty of time to get things set up for them for the ACT itself in March. The Wisconsin ACT website is updated regularly. November and December are high months for changes on this. So it's almost a weekly basis that new resources are added to that website. I'm going to be working on adding information to our own website under ACT support for you on a regular basis as well. So a word about accommodations. I know that some of you are all the way into this already. Your school is well on its way to being done. However, I just want to point out there are 4 kinds of accommodations or supports. Numbers 1 and 2, universal supports are for everyone. That's for everyone. So whether it's online or pencil paper, they're there for everyone. Designated supports need to, again, be requested, but that is something that is based on student need. Number 3, designated supports, student need, but it is available to everyone. It almost has to be, especially if we're doing the online, needs to be checked ahead of time. EL supports and accommodations require ACT approval. The first two do not. So you need to submit to TAA and then wait for approval for those two. Here are the webinars and office hours. You can see this is on the DPI website under question and answer training sessions. So they have a registration link. You can see the first one on accommodations was on October 25th. That has been recorded. Same thing as the November 8th administration one. That's been recorded. The future, there's a readiness one. It's more for technology, but if you want to just pop into that, that's great. That's coming up on the 10th of January. And administration 2 is different material. It's now geared towards, we're less than a month away, and that is available to you as well. Office hours, they have different times. The office hours that ACT and DPI have are not recorded. So if you're not there, you miss out on, but it's essentially questions and answers. All right. We're getting towards the end now. Dane County Youth Assessment once every 3 years is coming up. It's grades 7 through 12. It's been done since the 80s. We'll get more information about specifics shortly, but think late January, early February, kind of as a time frame. I know that that's also the end of the semester, and that causes all kinds of things, but please be aware, I know that, and we'll talk about some of the issues. However, keep in mind that this is a really important screener, or excuse me, survey. Last year alone, $1.1 million came to the district to support programs that used DCYA data. We are currently using this for several other large grants, and it's really important information because it benefits your students directly. And then finally, opting out. If students opt out at any time, please make sure that needs to be done in writing. It needs to be specific about which assessment, and email that version to myself or to Jamie Anderson, as I need to collect that information for the board. On the horizon, we've got a couple things coming. We'll be talking about the Achieve screener for 9th graders coming up in the winter. Apple for world language level 3 and above, and the seal by literacy is coming. Is coming up. Working with the world language leaders downtown here, but also your department chairs, so they are aware of what's coming and are gearing up for the Apple. Finally, we're going to stop recording in just a second, but I want to make sure you've got our email addresses. And I'm going to turn off the recording now.
Before you do that, Tim?
Yeah.
Do you want to address the winter screeners for Achieve? I'm going to put the form into the agenda, but maybe you can just talk about what that is.
So thank you, Sarah. The winter screener for Achieve, which is called Level Set, is a really powerful tool, especially in the middle of the year, to kind of gauge where students are at. If students are using the product, the articles, or if they're not, it is available, and it is a really good tool. And it just takes it does take some time, but it's really important that we actually offer that. However, since it's optional, we don't have a list of who's going to be giving this. So there is a form that we'll put into the agenda, the notes, and I'll be connecting with each of your schools as well about this. You have to let us know if you're going to do this, because literally we need to turn it on and set dates to do that. The assessment window for that is coming up. It's during the same window as Apple, or excuse me, as during the same window as Access. So if you're going to be using that, please let us know. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording now.